Hello, my name is Brian Chavez, and today I'm going to be talking about how this History 101 course has changed me as a person and has made me grow as an individual as well. This course has changed me by truly understanding that life isn't fair for certain people who can't control other people's actions just because you as a person are in their way of their goal and they will do whatever and anything it takes to achieve their goal, even if that goes against human morals. So that is going to be my thesis for this assignment. First part I want to talk about is how Columbus had this mindset towards the Taino natives that he encountered on his voyage. And one thing to keep in mind, and one thing that was really kind of set in stone, that the Taino were very friendly when they first encountered Columbus, but that didn't matter. According to the textbook, quote, it would require only 50 Spaniards, he wrote, to hold the islanders in subjection and make them do whatever one might wish, unquote. This made me grow as a person by understanding that Columbus had this premature and dehumanizing mindset that whoever is in his way, he's going to do whatever it takes to reach his goal, even if that goes against his human morals or not. And to read this and to really understand that this is what he wrote back to his to the people that he was reporting to just kind of made me aware of this premature mindset that Columbus had. And it was honestly very dehumanizing to know that that's one of the first things he wrote back, and that's what he felt in his heart. And another thing that played a role into is that he believed they could be converted into Christianity very easily for what it seemed that they had no religion. So for me to understand that he already had this dehumanizing mindset that these people would do as one might wish and that they would be converted to Christianity very easily. This made me grow as a person because the dehumanizing and premature mindset, and to understand that he was so desperate for his goal that the Spaniards and himself were going to kill, enslave, and rape the natives to reach their goals. And other people might advise him that this was not the right thing to do, but it didn't matter to Columbus because he needed to do whatever he needed to do to reach his goal, which was to go to Asia. And it was very unfortunate that the Taino people were friendly when they first encountered Columbus, and that Columbus and the Spaniards eventually outright killed them, enslaved them, sold them, and raped their women and stole from them. And yeah, this just made me grow as a person to understand that Columbus, whether these people were nice or not, that he was going to do whatever it took to reach his goal. And it's very heartbreaking to understand that, um, because how could someone have this premature and dehumanizing mindset already? But you have to take a step back, and I took a step back by realizing that it didn't matter to Columbus because he's so desperate for his goal that he was going to do all these things to these people to reach his goal. This also made me grow as a person because people who make derogatory remarks against indigenous people and other groups aren't educated enough to understand how moments like these in history still affect these individual ethnicities and races. And they don't understand how this will affect generations after generations. And someone like myself who isn't this ethnicity affects me because these people weren't supposed to be treated like this. And it's very unfortunate to read in detail and read the mindset and understand the mindset from what I was exposed to in this course, that Columbus had this premature and dehumanizing mindset towards the Tiana people. The second event that I'll be talking about is how the founding fathers of the United States, some of them knew that slavery wasn't okay, but overall their goal was to get the Constitution to be signed, but they could not do that without the South's approval. So, according to textbook, quote, they agreed the international slave trade could not be banned for at least 20 years, unquote. Um, so the Deep South warned the North and implied they would abandon the convention if they did not have the right to acquire and exchange human beings as property as they wished. So even though some of the founding fathers knew and understood that slavery was not okay, they turned the blind eye towards this because they were so desperate to get this Constitution signed that they did not put anything in the Constitution to prohibit slavery. And it's very disturbing to know that the founding fathers knew slavery wasn't okay. However, they didn't do anything in the Constitution to prohibit slavery because their goal wouldn't have been met if the South wouldn't have been on board and wouldn't have signed it. So it's very unfortunate to understand this and wrap my head around it because the founding fathers knew slavery wasn't okay. Some of them knew, but they didn't exercise their freedom, their voice, or anything like that enough to prohibit slavery in the Constitution because they needed the South's approval to sign off on the Constitution, and that's why there was nothing in the Constitution to prohibit it. And this made me grow as a person because in the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal wasn't true because the founding fathers didn't care enough to prohibit slavery in the Constitution because they were so desperate to sign this Constitution to get the Union on board and to make it official that they didn't make anything to prohibit slavery in the Constitution. So like I said, this made me grow as a person because some of the founding fathers knew slavery wasn't okay, but they still didn't do anything in the Constitution to prohibit it because they were so desperate for their goal to sign and get the South's approval on the Constitution that they turned a blind eye. However, this also made me grow as a person because it made me realize growing up that we would make slave jokes and slave remarks, and this made me grow as a person because now I'm educated enough to realize that we made jokes about slavery, but it also links into how the founding fathers didn't prohibit slavery in the Constitution because they're so desperate for their goals. And this also made me grow as a person because I understand that these jokes are not funny, and I wish I knew that all along. And it also made me grow as a person by accepting these bad events and speaking up against people who think this is a joke because they might not be educated enough to realize that this joke is insulting and is outright not okay because there was a specific race that were enslaved, that didn't have racial equality, and us 100 years later, 100 plus years later, are making jokes thinking this is a joke, when now I'm educated enough to understand it's not a joke. These people didn't have the same rights as a white person, and that they didn't have the same rights in the Constitution, even though the Declaration of Independence said that all men are created equal. And this made me grow as a person by understanding that these events and this corruption, in a way, can still affect generations to this day and future generations as well. And it's very unfortunate that these people weren't given the same opportunities because of their skin color. The next event I'll be talking about is how the Cherokee people were displaced when they were supposed to be recognized as a sovereign country. According to the textbook, quote, President Jackson, however, believed it was ridiculous for the federal government to treat Amerindian nations as if they were sovereign and independent states, unquote. It was hard to accept that Jackson ignored the Supreme Court's decision. The Supreme Court is supposed to be this government court that makes things set in stone. And for Jackson, who was a future president, to ignore this was very alarming to me. This made me grow by not getting mad at people anymore. Who don't understand how events like this hurt people and how derogatory terms of indigenous people still hurt this race. This made me not be angry anymore, because I know the raw detail of how someone like Jackson and the state of Georgia went against the ruling of the Supreme Court simply because they were so desperate to reach their goal, which was to get land, plant cotton, and make as much money for cotton textiles as they could. This made me grow as a person by understanding Jackson's ignorance and supporting Georgia removing the Cherokee people and the tribes, because their goal was to plant cotton, make the money. And it's just very unfortunate how someone can ignore the Supreme Court's decision to recognize this Cherokee nation as a sovereign state, because they were supposed to be recognized as a sovereign state and they were supposed to be on the land that they were removed from. Like I said, it was very hard to understand the Cherokee Nation was supposed to be protected because they were their own sovereign state, and the Supreme Court recognized that, but Jackson and the state of Georgia dismissed this. This also made me grow as a person by forgiving people who have made derogatory terms to me or other ethnicities or races, because they might not know the true details of events like this, or they might even know and choose to have that mindset of, no, I don't care about these people. It's the way I want to do it. And I've forgiven people. I've come at peace, because I think forgiving people is the first step to being a better person and growing as a person. So this is how this course has changed me, because of the Cherokee Nation and how they were how they were taken away from their land even after the Supreme Court ruled Georgia couldn't do that. It made me grow, because now I understand that I have to forgive people even if they know or don't know these events, or if their mindset is so biased that they don't care about these events. I've grown to be a bigger person and speak up to people and try to educate them and have a civil conversation on why I'm speaking up. I don't take this stuff lightly anymore because I've learned in detail that these horrible events that occurred to people, they are simply because they were simply in the way of another person's goal, like Jackson and the state of Georgia. This also made me grow as a person as I drive through Colorado to Nevada or through Nevada to California, that this specific group was pushed west of the Mississippi and then all the way to the West Coast because they were always just going to be in someone's way of their goal. And it's very unfortunate to know that these people had no home in the white man society. So the last thing we'll be talking about is the Kansas-Nebraska Act. According to the textbook, quote, the Kansas-Nebraska Act disturbed them even more deeply because it was proposed to, in effect, repeal the Missouri Compromise, unquote. This made me grow as a person because laws were already in place to have slavery prohibited north of this latitude, which was referred to as the Missouri Compromise, and that south of this latitude slavery was allowed. But again, because people were so desperate for their goals, like building a transcontinental railroad, this is why the Kansas-Nebraska Act was in place to overrule the Missouri Compromise, because they wanted these new territories to have sovereign, popular sovereignty to decide whether slavery was going to be allowed there or not. How could people be so desperate to get this railroad in place when there was already a law prohibiting slavery south of this latitude line and or prohibiting slavery north of the latitude line and allowing slavery south of the latitude line? Again, my whole thesis is understanding that, or realizing that people will do whatever it takes to reach their goals, whether it's going to be breaking laws or it's going against human morals. And it just baffles me that this Kansas-Nebraska Act was put in place to overrule the Missouri Compromise when they already made it set in stone that north of it, no slavery. South of it, there's going to be slavery. But now, simply because I want, or the person wants, the government wants a transcontinental railroad, we're going to dismiss all that because I'm so desperate for my goal that we're going to ignore this Missouri Compromise line, put in the Kansas-Nebraska Act, so we can just let these new territories decide for themselves, when we in the past already decided that slavery was going to be prohibited north of it and is going to be allowed in the south. This made me grow by understanding whether there's a law in place or not. If someone wants to build something, they will overrule it and let these new territories decide on slavery just so they can build their railroad. And it's just very sad to understand and to wrap my head around that they were so desperate for this transcontinental railroad, that to connect the West Coast, that they were so desperate they made these new territories have popular sovereignty, and that's why the Kansas-Nebraska Act was put in place. Overall, this course and events made me more at peace with myself because I'm more educated in history. I don't get angry anymore at people because they might not know all these details that I've learned from this course. I've grown to want to educate people who think people are too sensitive nowadays with events that have happened in the past, letting them know people couldn't stand up for themselves for multiple reasons. Not being angry is going to make me a better person, and this course has made me a better person because I'm not angry anymore, because I'm educated, and made me a better person, and hopefully I can educate the future generations on this, on the educational purposes, to understand that these bad history events make them that these bad history events could make them grow as a person, could help them understand where other people are coming from when it comes to racial equality, and letting them know my point of view and how the event details that I've learned in this course had made me the person who I am today. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Dr. Mooney, for this amazing course. It was an honor to be in this course. Thank you.